All right, Legends Live after our super exciting promo, as always.
It's a pretty
Back
good
with Mike Farrell here.
It's a drum beat, man. That's a pretty aggressive tune there.
Yeah, I feel like it's Green Day is going to come out or something.
So I'm looking at the Kruger numbers. We're going to talk about the promo. myfootballcamps.com/D1. Carson Kruger, one of our quarterbacks, 2023 in Texas, almost got his head taken off. I just showed you the video earlier. Instagram is doing well. And then TikTok, nothing. Crickets. And it's such a cool viral video. You would think it would be doing more, but eventually it'll catch up. But one other account put it out there, 1.7 million views. So kid nearly got his head taken off and still took his helmet off and threw a pass. It's just, that's awesome.
Dude, he's a straight player. I mean, the guys that we have right now, Colin Skeen threw for 242. Rauner is tearing it up out in Nebraska. Colin Skeen's out in Connecticut. The big guy Hartman's tearing up. These guys are all they're going to get great opportunities from this, and the great thing is they're starting to deliver on the field, and the schools will start to notice.
And Marshall threw his first varsity touchdown, the quarterback from Pennsylvania. But we've been saying the name wrong, man. I think it's Marsholik.
It's Marsholik.
I think. I don't know. I'll find out. So I saw a video of it, and they were calling it on whatever, closed circuit TV or whatever they were doing, and I heard the name wrong, and I hit up his dad. I said, "Have we been pronouncing this wrong the whole time?" He goes, "It's close enough." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." We got to get it right though. So, but he threw his first varsity touchdown pass, and he's a young kid. So again,
freshman,
the younger kids, he's already getting on the radar now. Where I think if you didn't do this, you might struggle to get on the radar. Just because, what I've noticed with quarterbacks especially is 100 schools will go after the same kid when honestly five schools should go after that kid. Let's take Dante Moore in Michigan. Okay, App State, who we're going to talk about later, beating Texas A&M. They can go after him all they want. They're wasting their time. And then those schools tend to lose focus on some of the other quarterbacks that are out there that should be on their radar moving up. And I just think it's one of those things where everybody gets focused on the big name guys. And Arch Manning played well this past weekend. So I've had the whole Arch Manning is a 3-star type of thing. And, talent-wise, he's a 4-star, and I ranked him as a 4-star, but he's certainly not the number one player, not 5-star and all that stuff. He's starting to come around a little bit. But any team that tried to waste their time with Arch Manning, really spun their wheels when they could have been looking at other quarterbacks.
That's a good point. And what I've noticed, and maybe this is part of the whole era of everybody throwing so much, right, and 7-on-7, and there are guys that are emerging that look to me to be pretty similar to some top guys. And it's just about, has anyone paid attention? So now, obviously, there's certain parameters that coaches are looking for. But when I'm talking about pure passers, I'm talking about pure passers. I'm not talking about a guy who can run and pass but obviously those are different things. One guy's faster than the other and all that kind of stuff. That's a big deal. But I'm talking about guys throwing the ball, and I'm seeing a lot more of quarterbacks that could throw the ball that maybe or may not have gotten the exposure they have and maybe should deserve it. And I've seen it in some of these, not just the videos that we're doing on guys, but I happen to see, when I see videos on some other kids, and I say, geez, I'd love to have the opportunity to promote that kid too, because that kid over here is pretty darn good, and he's out he's promoting himself in cricket's land, and that's why
the hard part to me though is I want to promote some of these kids, but I also don't want to approach them and ask for money. But it costs money. I mean, I'm not going to take my time and do it for free, but also there's guys that I would love to be under our client base that I think are under the radar that need this. But it's kind of weird to me because if I do approach them, and some of them I have, then they're like, well, how much? And I tell them how much, and they're like, well, it's almost like I want to, and they think, well, you just want to because you want the money, and it's really not it. but I also want to, but I'm not going to do it without the money. It's a weird thing, but it takes luck. Like Dwayne Haskins, the late great Dwayne Haskins, who was amazing at Ohio State. I'll tell you a little story about him and a little bit of luck. So Kevin Tolliver was a 5-star cornerback in Florida, committed to LSU. There was a relation there. I don't know if it's an uncle, brother, whatever. But a family member of Kevin Tolliver, reached out to me to get Dwayne Haskins in our Maryland camp when he was a sophomore, and he had no offers at the time. And it was a favor that I did, and partially a favor because I knew Tolliver's father, and Tolliver was a 5-star, and we were covering his recruitment. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know if the kid was good or not, no idea. Shows up, wins MVP, 40 offers later, top 100 player, commits to Maryland, flips to Ohio State, becomes a first rounder. That's kind of how it can work sometimes. It's like, now I'm not saying people wouldn't have found Dwayne Haskins, but they found him a lot quicker because of a favor that was called in to get him into a national camp. This is similar to that. This is like, it's not a national camp, but you're going to get noticed and you're going to have the videos watched and they're going to be consumed. And, they don't have to be crazy. The Kruger video is crazy because his head almost came off. That's what goes viral in this world. But if you get a good 4,000 to 5,000 video views off of our social media on Twitter, and that's just the Twitter example, you got to know that most of those are college coaches. And I'm not saying 5,000 college coaches are clicking on it, but the average fan doesn't care. They don't care if you have no offers. They don't care who you are. They don't care that Carson Rounder's in Nebraska. They don't care about any of that stuff. They care,
right.
If you've got an offer and you're interested in my school, they care. So
the reason I'm scrolling down while I'm talking to you, because I wanted to explain a good example of how it can make a difference, right? And this is just Parker Meese is the latest video I did on him on TikTok. Okay.
Yeah.
Was 30,000 views. It's at 28,000 views.
Right.
Okay. Now this is a kid that bought just a TikTok for me a while back. Kid Austin Christian, right? He went to Texas A&M camp. He was a sixth grader. He has 236,000 views. 236,000 views.
What's the difference?
Well, I'm saying.
Well, I'll tell you what the difference is. A sixth grader is more viral, right? It just is. Like
my point is this though. 28,000 views, a lot of views, right?
Yeah.
260,000 views, a lot of views.
Right.
If you're getting the Parker Meese he was already obviously a very good prospect to begin with before we started working with him, but he is going to a whole nother. I mean, he can have every offer he wants, pretty much. All right. He's at like 20 plus offers. He's going to be no one ends up bothering at that point, but he's going to be a 40 offer guy. Okay. And, then they stop, people stop listing after a certain point. Right. But he'll be a 40 offer guy. And so the range I think is great, right? The guy who's just trying to get an offer, maybe even if you're just trying to go Division III and need more exposure, right? But we're talking a lot more about scholarships, guys. We're just trying to get that first offer, right? Or you're a guy that's already touted pretty highly and just wants to go through the roof, right? Let's go through the roof. And These are things that can happen. I think, but myfootballcamps.com/D1. We want to talk a little college football too.
Yeah, but let me just make one more point on that. So if someone will look at 26,000 views and say that's not viral, that's nothing. It's a ton. 5,000 views on Twitter is a ton. Viral is a sixth grader, like you said, who's got offers or is dynamic, or you've seen the ambidextrous quarterback, right?
Right.
That'll go viral. Kruger getting his head taken off, 1.7 million views. That'll go viral. None of that will help. Really, I mean, it's fun, but I'd rather have the 5,000 knowing that's mostly coaches or friends of coaches or administrators or whatever that are looking at your video than the 1.7 million people who will comment and say, wow, he could have broke his neck.
The ambidextrous quarterback too, by the way.
Yeah.
I watched his film. He throws righty.
Yeah.
He's a righty.
Yeah. And
He
you know
can
what?
throw.
He doesn't.
I use a funny thing. You know who could throw either arm? I was shocked by this. He showed it
Oh,
to me. My son who's 7. He's a
really?
righty. He's a righty. Okay, he's a righty, but he can throw either arm. But he's not going to throw either arm in a game. You get it? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
He throws with his right arm in a game. But when we're like fooling around, he'd be like, "Dad, watch me throw with my other arm." He can actually throw. I'm like, wow, I can't do that. I throw like I hate to say this, but like a little girl, when I throw with my left arm, right? My right arm, I can fire it. Left arm, I throw like a little girl. My son can actually throw with either arm, and I'm like shocked by that. But he throws with his right arm in a game because that's really stronger. That's really
Yeah.
his stronger arm.
Yeah. It's so, I mean, because he throws with both hands on the video, people gravitate towards it,
Right, sure.
but to me,
If you're recruiting him, you want to see, can he throw with his dominant arm?
right.
Like he
Because some
needs
of the
to.
throws, you can tell which arm is the dominant arm and which isn't when he throws it. And some of them are just, I guess we're living a world of gimmicks and gimmicky. I mean, if you want to get attention, sure, go out there and throw the ball with both hands, but nobody cares.
Agreed.
That's, look at this. I love when ESPN starts these videos without telling you.
Oh yeah. Oh, that just rolls. That's annoying.
It's annoying. So, but so when we have people who come on and I retweet their promo or whatever, and they get 4,000 views or something like that, they understand that they're reaching the people they need to reach because they'll see coaches follow them, or they'll see this, that, and the other, or they'll get mail, and they understand it because we're telling them that's part of the process. But I think a lot of people want to go viral for whatever. I'll tell you, the most viral video I ever shot in my entire life was this kid named Landon Jackson, who, he was a 4-star defensive end, went to Texas A&M, or no, he went to LSU, and then just transferred to Arkansas. And the video got, I don't know, maybe 10 million views or something like that. And it was him going through drills, and he didn't know what he was doing with drills. And he's got a condition where he can't grow hair. So this is this.
I know he is. Yes.
Yeah, he's like kind of pale, and he's bald, and he looks kind of funny, and he's going through drills, and he doesn't look good doing them. And he's following Tyreek Sapp, who's this freaking maniac 5-star kid out of high school who run into academic issues, but it was just an unbelievable football player. So you get him going, and then you get Landon Jackson looking awkward after that, and it's 10 million views of people making fun of the kid. Yeah, what good is that? That doesn't do anybody any good. And it wasn't on purpose. I just shot the videos, and they happened to go back to back, and I just put it up and said, I think it was Future 50 at Under Armour. Who cares? Like, that's not good. What's good is reaching the people you need to reach, and it's a slow burn. It's always a slow burn. We were just talking about business and how it's a constant grind, and every day you got to get up and do it again and do it again and do it again. And there's a lot of people in younger generations now who feel that they're just going to be discovered and they're going to get rich, and they don't think that, Mark Cuban busted his ass to get where he was, or Bill Gates, or any of these, Jeff Bezos. These people worked endlessly around the clock for nothing forever, and then broke through. And you and I are certainly not Jeff Bezos or anything like that, but that's what it takes. And that's what this takes too. So when people sign up for the 1, we'll do the 1. But I say to them, the 6 is probably the most popular. And I'm going to tell you this, as we move along, the 12 months is going to be the most popular pretty soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because what's going to happen is, if you get in too late, we're going to help you. I mean, Kruger's got a few scholarship offers that he would have never gotten before. And the 2024 kids that we're talking about, the Connecticut kid and the Nebraska kids, they'll get offers. But if you get in too late, it's too late. If you get in early, you're going to want to maintain that, and that's why the 12 months. So I just tell people, like, listen, you have to be out there publicly in front of the right people every month. They cannot forget your name. And that's not emailing them or DMing them or sending them mail or whatever. That's annoying. What this is it's a very subtle way of reaching them through a feed that they already follow and have notifications on for. And that's kind of the way to subliminally and subconsciously stay in their head. Hartman's a good example. He plays all 5 offensive line positions. We've done 4 promos, I think, on him.
Yeah, I have another one coming up on him.
Yeah. So what happens with these coaches? These coaches keep that in the back of their head. And then the 5th one, they'll see it. And maybe they just whiffed on, a guard that they wanted. Or maybe they whiffed on a center and they could project him at center. Or maybe they just struck out on 2 tackles that they're looking for. And he's in their head. And the other ones won't be. I didn't know who Hartman was. I didn't know who Kruger was. I didn't know any of these guys. Never heard of any of them. And at Rivals, when I was there, I would have never in a million years heard of any of them. Kruger just asked me, is there any update on my Rivals profile? I said, no. I said, I don't work there anymore, and I don't have any control over who they give profiles to. But I can tell you this, it makes no difference. And I told you about the kid last week. I can't remember his name, but he was asking me about, I got a 3-star rating from Prep Red Zone or something. No, I never heard of him. What about this one, Blue Gray something? I've never heard of him, man. People can hand out 3-star rankings all day. I could do the Mike Farrell ranking system, and I can give you 3 stars if you pay me, but that doesn't mean anything. It's not going to help you. So this is the industry big secret is if you want to get to the coaches, you can't go to any of these websites. You can't, none of it's going to help you whatsoever. And it's not their job to help you. Their job is to sell subscriptions based on big name guys that are going to schools, period.
I think my question is, why do they think that I've dealt with this for years. It's like people get offers and then you get from Division I, and then eventually you get on Rivals or 24/7.
Yeah.
If you don't have offers, even if you beg them and somehow they put you on, it doesn't matter. I can't tell you how many guys I see that someone begged and got on. They gave them some star ranking. There's no offers there. It's like, it doesn't matter. So if you're a 3-star and you have offers, okay. If you're a 3-star and you have no offers, guess what matters? Offers.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you why it happens. I'll tell you why. Because in the beginning, when these companies like 24/7, I think, started in 2010, and it was Shannon Terry who would, he'd taken Rivals. Jim Ackman Rivals went out of business, ad-based, and then went to subscription-based. Shannon took over, made it a subscription-based success.
Tremendous success. Yeah.
In the beginning of this entire website process, Rivals and it was the insiders back in the day and turned to Scout. We used to actually pay attention to those things. We used to pay attention to emails of kids coming through with this, that, and the other. We used to put those kids in the database because we needed to. But then when it became a big business of subscriber-based stuff and people they cared about 4 stars and 5 stars, which happened pretty quickly. But we couldn't even keep up with those emails. We used to have an email info@Rivals or recruiting at rivals.com or something. And in the beginning, when I started, we used to pay attention to that. 5 years in, it was all going to spam because we just ignored it. We couldn't even look at it. And there could have been, Jadeveon Clowney might have emailed as an 8th grader. I don't know. We would never look at it ever. Just can't. Don't have time. Too busy talking about this, that, and the other, or breaking down this kid's film, or, who visited Texas this weekend for the big game against Alabama. That's what people pay for. That's what people care about. And that's what they will always care about. Now you got the flip side, the companies that have been around forever that are charge you an exorbitant amount of money to promise you a scholarship and say they're on the phone with these schools, and they're blasting out emails, but they're not doing anything else. So it's really, there's a lot of misinformation, and it's advantage is taken of parents because they don't know and they're desperate, and kids are desperate too. So they'll just go to someone who will lie to them and say, listen, I'll give you 3 stars on whatever website I'm running. And people are going to pay attention to that. It's not. And we get a lot of kids and parents that say, I went to this company and I was very disappointed. The one I just sent you through LinkedIn, we tried this company. We really didn't get anywhere. And that we hear that over and over again. So listen, we're not perfect. I'm not going to turn anybody into Tom Brady, and I'm certainly not going to get anybody a Power 5 scholarship that doesn't deserve it. but I will
Correct.
get him attention. That's it.
Correct.
All right, now we can talk college football.
Yep. And if you want to follow up us, myfootballcamps.com/D1. Let's talk some college football. Upset City this week.
Yeah, it was crazy. So the first one I want to talk about, I guess, is App State over Texas A&M. Chase Bryce, and this is great. Chase Bryce, he didn't have a great game. He's 15-30, 134 yards. It was a low-scoring game, which is funny because App State and UNC had that 63-61 game. But, here's a kid who committed to Clemson, lost his job to Trevor Lawrence, ended up going to Duke, didn't pan out there, and then ends up at App State. And now that the portal's kind of open, where you don't get unlimited bites at the apple, but they're never going to really turn you down. He just found his space, his place, and where he can be successful. And I think that's really starting to turn college football slightly towards parity. And I'm not saying full parity, but when you see Kalen LeBourne, who was a 5-star kid who committed to Florida State and lands at Marshall, and he's the key in 163 yards to beating Notre Dame. Or when you see a guy like Ryan Watts at Texas who transferred from Ohio State, and yeah, he missed the tackle against Bryce Young, but there was clearly a hold on that play. Or you see, a Quinn Ewers who transferred from Ohio State. I think the portal itself is getting teams better quicker, and I think that's what we're starting to see on the college football landscape. So it's good. Alabama almost lost. Texas A&M did lose. Notre Dame did lose. Nebraska lost to Georgia Southern. And you're talking about big, massive programs with huge boosters, huge followings, NIL money like crazy. And these little schools are knocking them off. Or with Alabama's case, Texas is on the come up. And we're starting to see, that was the first time I've seen Nick Saban look old, ever. And I'm not saying old like tired or worn down, or just looked old. I'm so used to him looking 50 when he's 70. And I'm like, I think we might have just seen the first chink in the armor of Alabama this past weekend.
I thought that, Quinn Ewers, by the way, he got hurt, right? And that's really, although the other quarterback played well too, right? But
yeah, Hudson Card, he got hurt too, but he played through his leg injury. Quinn Ewers got that AC joint shoulder thing. He's out 4 to 6 weeks.
He was playing great. I mean,
great.
He was. Here's what can happen if you choose to go to a school and you pull an upset like this. So there is something to say for. I don't know if you saw this video at all. Let me see if I can get it so it's bigger. But this is all the people from App State. Did you see this?
Yeah, I did. It's awesome.
I mean, that is like when you say what is college football about?
That's Boone, baby. Boone, North Carolina right there.
I couldn't even tell you where Boone, North Carolina is.
It's in the mountains. It's in the Appalachians. It's in the middle of nowhere. I've been there once. But yeah, it's fun to see that stuff. And it's fun to see, Marshall and the celebration that they had winning at Notre Dame. And listen, I don't root against Notre Dame or against Marcus Freeman or against Jimbo Fisher. I just like college football. It's fun to see upsets. It's fun to see a nice guy like Clay Helton. He was a really nice human being who was in over his head at USC. It's nice to see him sort of get a victory. It was a fun weekend, and we all want parity in college football. I mean, I'll be honest. I was rooting for Texas to beat Alabama, and not because I don't like Nick Saban or I think they're the evil empire or whatever. I just thought it would really, throw college football upside down. And that's what I do. I like writing about that stuff. I like, I could still write about how Texas came close and how Ewers looked good and Alabama looked sloppy. I could still write about that. But when Texas, was going down to kick that field goal, and they did, and they went up 19-17, I'm like, just let them win, man. It's going to be good for the sport. They didn't win, but it's still good for the sport to have teams like this be good.
Well, Notre Dame will be interesting. So Charles Huff, that's the head coach of Marshall, right?
Yes.
He's an Alabama
Yep.
former associate head coach, right, or assistant head coach and assistant coach. And I have to say, one of the trees that definitely people always argue about coaching trees that have been successful, and there are multiple ones that have done great things. Going way back to when Tom Landry was a head coach and his OC was like Dan Reeves and all those things going back in the day. But I think what's so interesting is that Nick Saban. One day they may be saying, his biggest contribution may not be what he did in all the national championships, but how many head coaches he produced.
Yeah.
In his, I mean, it's an amazing number of guys. You got Sark. You got if Sark somehow becomes successful and recoups his reputation from that standpoint, and the guy at Maryland,
Loxley, you got obviously
Loxley,
Kirby at Georgia, national championship dude.
and that may be his greatest contribution as a leader, as much as he does as a obviously a leader of young men. His leadership of other leaders is pretty amazing.
And I like seeing these younger coaches or these no-name head coaches, sort of get on the come up because it's not that I'm jaded or anything, but I've been dealing with these guys for the longest time. I don't know Nick Saban. Nick Saban doesn't know me. I've interviewed him a couple times. It was great. He couldn't care less. But, I'm tired of covering Nick Saban a little bit, I want to delve into who Sean Clark is, the App State coach,
Yep.
and then look into his he was an O-line coach and he's an O-line guy. And, he was at Louisville and, he's not young, he's born in 75. I wouldn't say he's on the come up. He played at App State. He's going to stay there forever, I think. I mean, that's his perfect job. But guys like Huff, who I knew at Penn State and knew at Mississippi State and knew at Alabama, these are the guys that I'm really interested in, because Dabo just got paid last week and that's great. And, we see Jimbo Fisher making, $10 million a year and he's so overrated and hasn't done anything at Texas A&M yet. And I'm just tired of that. I like the younger guys.
I love Sam Pittman. You love him, right?
Oh, Sam Pittman's amazing. So the two guys that I want to point out here, Sam Pittman and Mark Stoops. Okay, like they're two different jobs. Okay, Kentucky is always a basketball school. They were a basketball school when Stoops arrived. Nothing, it was ever going to change that, and they weren't good. They had the Hal Mummy years and all that stuff and Joker. They weren't good. And he turned them into a really good football program. And now they're a football program that could potentially win 9 or 10 games every year. And they can go into the swamp and win. And they hadn't won in the swamp in like 20 something years, prior to their previous victory there. They're a real football team. He's a real great coach. He was a good find. They stuck with him. Same thing with Pittman. Pittman was a guy who didn't have any prior experience as far as a coordinator was concerned. Everybody knew he was a good recruiter, a good guy. He goes to Arkansas, horrible schedule. They get killed in the schedule 2020. He wins 9 games of 2021. Now he's 2-0. Those are the stories that I like. And it's funny because I did, one of my guys did a Scott Frost replacement, list, and Stoops was on there from Kentucky. But that's honestly, it's a lateral move at best if he goes to Nebraska. And I saw some other lists that had Pittman on there, and I'm
I
like,
wouldn't make those moves if I were them.
Well, Pittman would never in a million years leave Arkansas. I don't even think for any job. I mean, the guy is Arkansas. He loves Arkansas. Now he's not, he's not a player or anything like that. But he's perfect for that fit. And they gave him a shot when no one else would. I mean, he played at Pittsburgh State. He's a guy who's been coaching since 1984.
I look at here. He's coaching high school, junior college.
Yeah.
Hutchinson forever.
He was at Hutchinson. They back in the 90s where they were putting out tremendous JUCO players, but nobody cared. He got his first break at Cincinnati, and then he went to Oklahoma, and he's an O-line coach. He's been an O-line coach, assistant head coach here and there, but a great guy. Arkansas took a chance on him. They took an absolute chance on him.
I'll tell you another one who I love. You take off the R, and the next word is Kansas. What isn't that Lance Leopold, right?
It's Leopold, and he's destined. So Sam Pittman I don't think he's ever going to leave. I think they're going. First of all, they're going to give him so much money, and they're going to extend him and make sure that he gets his guaranteed money. And I think he knows what Arkansas did for him, and what a great fit that is. I don't know if Stoops will leave Kentucky. I think he'd be smart to stay there. Lance Leopold's leaving Kansas. Not tomorrow, but this is a guy who won.
He won at Buffalo.
Yeah, but he won $1 billion Division III titles at Wisconsin
Whitewater, right?
Yeah, and then he did a great rebuilding job at Buffalo, and now at Kansas, he's beaten West Virginia. They beat Texas last year. He's going to go 5-7, but they're 2-0 right now. They'll probably go 5-7. But he's going to parlay that into everybody knows what a great coach Lance Leopold is, and he's going to get a better job. Now, he could be a guy Nebraska targets and goes there. And if they got him, everybody I speak to in this business tells me what a great coach he is, period. Great coach, not recruiter, and not flashy, great coach. So I think he'd be a great get for Nebraska if he decided to leave.
I agree 100%. I mean, he won at Buffalo. We played them when I was in college. They were like, they were a win. You know what I'm saying?
They've always been a win. Not always, but yeah, they've been a win. They don't.
He turned them around.
Well, how the hell do you recruit to Buffalo?
He did. I don't know how he did. He had to develop players. He must be
he
great.
Did. That's what he does. He's not a great recruiter, but getting kids to go there. And Khalil Mack is probably the most famous Buffalo alum that you're going to think of. And I think he was a Florida kid who had no offers or something like that. It just, come to Western New York and get 85 inches of snow every winter. It's a hard sell. It's a hard program to turn around. He did it. Then at Kansas, I'm like, okay, this is Chris Beatty all over again. He's going to go 1-11 for 3 straight years and get fired because Kansas just sucks. And here he is 2-0, beat West Virginia, beat Texas last year. The guy can coach. The guy will get a bigger job. And I think he's just fun to watch because they're overmatched. I mean, the fact that they beat Texas in that overtime high-scoring game last year was miraculous. They shouldn't beat West Virginia. He'll win, 3-4 more games. They shouldn't win those either. But it's just fun to talk about those guys instead of the Ryan Days and the Lincoln Rileys and the Nick Sabans of the world.
Who we know already, not only obviously they're good coaches, but they already have every advantage as well. Right? These are the guys who are doing like Stoops to me is so. You're 100% on, right? Kentucky used to hire as a gimmick almost. What gimmick could we get in there that will attract some recruits to come in? They hired Stoops, who's a football coach, right? Like, obviously, he runs a great system and everything like that. It's not like he's running an offense from the dark ages, but he runs a great system. But it's the football aspect that he does so well, and every part of it recruits the right guys for his system, recruits the best players that he can. He does a great job coaching and developing. So he's competing at a high level in the SEC because he's put all those things together.
Yeah. And really did a great job going into the Southeast and winning some recruiting battles in Georgia. And a lot of people, it's hard to do that. It's really hard to do that. And he, I think he was also helped. Charlie Strong was at Louisville at the time, and he was doing successful, recruiting in Florida. And I think you also need that kind of push. Pittman took over for Morris, and the program was in shambles. And he's recruiting against the LSUs and Texas A&Ms and Alabamas of the world, and he has to step up his game. He just has to. Sometimes you don't have a choice. When Urban Meyer came into the Big Ten, everybody had to change the way they recruited. They had no choice. Brett Bielema at Wisconsin was complaining. He was stealing recruits and all that. Good. Complain all you want. Urban Meyer's going to steal your recruits. What are you going to do about it? So sometimes these guys get punched in the face and they respond and they go through difficult times. And then there's guys, no offense to Ryan Day, I love him, but that's born on third base, man. I mean, you take over Ohio State from Urban Meyer, you better make the playoffs. If you don't, you're going to be under fire. So it's just fun to see these upsets. It's fun to see these coaches. I don't know. It's just fun.
Yeah, all the hoopla before the season, and when they actually get to playing, now you get to see actually all the real stuff. That's the best part about the season. You actually get to see, like, you can talk about all this or this deal or that deal, and Texas A&M's got this guy getting this thing and that guy getting this thing. At the end, you still got to go on the field to produce, right? And you've said this from the get-go with NIL. Listen, it's great to take the money, you should get it. But you better not neglect what you got to do on the field, because that money will be gone quick if you don't do what you're supposed to. You want to be a pro, you got to conduct yourself like a pro.
Yeah, and I think A&M's in a little bit of trouble here. The schedule is difficult. They've got Miami next. Then they've got Arkansas, Alabama, Ole Miss, Florida. I mean, they got a lot of ranked football teams on their schedule. If he goes 8-4 again, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny because he's paid so much money, and all that NIL money they're funneling into players. Those kids are going to jump in the portal. And the portal, I was thinking about this last night. So the portal, they passed the rule of the portal windows. So now you have a 45-day window after the last, conference championship game in December. And so all the schools have been told not to put kids in the portal, and some are still putting them in because they don't listen, and some are still being processed because the NCAA is a mess. But most of it is stopped and slowed down. What a freaking nightmare everything is going to be for everybody after that last conference championship game, that Saturday, when the Saturday before the playoff selection show, when kids can go in a portal. I think it's that Monday. 1,000 kids are going to be in the portal in one day. How does that help anything? Sometimes I just think the NCAA looks at a problem and says, we got kids jumping in the portal in August. We got kids jumping in May. We got kids doing this, that, and the other. We got to stop that. Let's do a window. Okay, so let's have 3,000 kids jump in the portal in 45 days instead of 365. That's not going to help. I'm not looking forward to that day. And you and I have talked about that. The promotion of portal players, it's going to be more important than ever. I mean, we do the high school promotion now. We're going to be doing portal players as well, because they're going to jump in, they're going to lose their scholarship, and then they're going to jump in kind of blind, because nobody knows in December what your roster is going to look like in the spring. You haven't even finished your recruiting. It's going to be roster management a mess. And my point to all this is that those A&M kids, they signed 28 of them or so last year, number one class in the country. 10 of those kids could jump in the portal immediately because they're unhappy and Jimbo's under fire and they're not winning. And recruiting is great, but you better win or else those kids are going to bolt.
Right. Very, very, very interesting stuff. So one more question, and you would, I think you might have shared some insight. Are Notre Dame fans already upset? Like, Marcus Freeman has been given the keys to the castle, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of my things is they're always so mad at Brian Kelly, although he's got his own issues now. But so he's going to have to do the job there because he's got his own issues. But Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, right? I think they made such a mistake in just anointing him. Just let him do his job, because these things that have losing the Marshall stuff, they're going to happen in your first year, right? They're going to happen to a guy that's new to being a head coach. He could be the greatest head coach of all time, but he's in his first year. He's been a coordinator, and he's got a young offensive coordinator on the staff, even though they're friends, right? But Tommy Rees, what are Notre Dame's fans talking about right now? I'm just curious.
Well, so first of all, it just came out that Tyler Buchner is out for the year.
Oh,
He's got a grade 6 AC sprain in his shoulder. So that means it's Drew Pine, and we've seen Drew Pine. He came off the bench last year against Wisconsin, looked good, but we saw him this weekend, didn't look good. That's going to hurt them as well. Not that their offense was doing well under Buckner anyways, but here's the thing. So the hatred of Brian Kelly overshadowed the questions that were obvious regarding Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman is a former player. He was a former 5-star kid I covered in high school. Really good job at Cincinnati, played well at Ohio State. Internal hire coaches, not players, coach, right? So everybody hated Brian Kelly so much that they were kind of blind to the fact that this guy's never really been a head coach. He's kind of young. This is a big job for him to take over. Now they're 0-3 under him, including the bowl game last year. And I think there's a sense of worry, not fire him, get rid of him. I think there's a sense of worry that this guy's just not ready. He's just not. And he looks ready. The Ohio State game, he looked good as a coach. He made some good decisions. He made some dumb ones too, but nothing that killed the game.
right.
But this team didn't come out to play against Marshall. Offensively, they were horrible. Defensively, they were gashed by a team that has not even close. Team that was missing their best player. Their running back, LeBourne, was their backup. He was put into play just because Ali, their best running back, decided to step away from football for a while. It's just, I think there's worry. I think there's concern that we got a guy that maybe in over his head. And I was concerned not only for that, you never know with a guy who's never coached a head football coach, like even Venables at Oklahoma, I still have concerns and worries about, even though they're 2-0. My concern was, how do you fill the shoes of Brian Kelly? How do you get to the national championship game at Notre Dame? And how do you get to 2 playoff appearances at Notre Dame? How are you going to do better than that? You can't. And same thing for Venables. How are you going to get to 3 playoffs in 5 years? Now, with the expanded playoff, yeah, and that's going to help him a lot. But you can't fill the shoes of Brian Kelly. I'm sorry, and Notre Dame fans don't want to hear that, and they don't want to talk about. They hate Brian Kelly. They hope he fails. But I think they're got a guy who's going to fall very, very short of what Brian Kelly set the bar at.
Yeah, the jury's out, but the 0-3 part is what concerns me now, and the fact that their their play, to me, like beginning of Ohio State game, it was exactly what I expected from a new coach, players under a new coach, right? Fired up. They gave Ohio State all they can handle. The line was really controlling things for Notre Dame. They looked great. And then they got away from things that they were doing well. The game started to change. We went Ohio State's direction. They ended up losing the game, even though you could argue they played well for most of that game. But what I saw was the second half of, okay, where there's no longer hype. See, Ohio State has been there, right? So Notre Dame was the team that was like, we're going to show the world that we don't need Brian Kelly. And the first half, that's what I saw. You know what I'm saying? I've seen it in high school so many times. Like when a coach that people maybe like and leaves and the kids are mad about it or something, we're going to show the world. The first half is this world beater thing, and then reality sets in, which is the game. And then the other team has a chance to take over. That's probably the better team anyway, right? And then the next game, now we've lost, right? So how do you come back from the biggest thing, and this is from my coaching side of things, the biggest thing you see in a coach, to me, is what do you do from week 1 to week 2, right? What happens from week 1 to week 2? A really good coach, to me, when something they could had a lot to build on from the Ohio State game, right?
Right.
It should have came right out, crushed Marshall. I'm not taking away anything from Marshall. They've got players. They always have, right? But they should have came right out, took it to Marshall. That, to me, is an issue with coaching where you at Notre Dame to begin with. There are players there, obviously. They should have came right back and said, hey, we could build off of this. We had a chance at Ohio State. Now we've got to go to another level. Let's take it to Marshall and show everyone that we're on the rise, right? They didn't do that. That's
At
my
home, at
question.
home
Now,
too. I
what?
mean, Marshall came into their place and just threw them around. It's at home. I mean, that's really just bad. You can't be that flat at home, So I don't know. Listen, if I'm an LSU fan, I'm worried about Brian Kelly and his cultural fit. If I'm a Notre Dame fan, I'm worried about
Right.
Marcus Freeman and being over his head. If I'm an A&M fan, I'm worried that we spent way too much money on Jimbo Fisher. If I'm a Nebraska fan, I'm worried that we're going to hire somebody who, is similar to Mike Riley and Scott Frost success-wise, and we're never going to be good again. There's a lot of concerns out there. And this is why the teams that win should appreciate it. There's Notre Dame, Alabama fans out there that were upset about how sloppy they looked and, blah, blah, blah. Just appreciate the fact that you win every freaking game. Even when you come out and suck and your offensive line stinks, you can't run the football, and you commit penalties that you usually don't commit, and you win on the road against a Texas team, which isn't bad. Take the win, be happy with it, and shut up, because you could be one of these other teams that's just like, I don't know what to do. Who's the other one? Texas A&M, Notre Dame, Nebraska. I mean, there's some other programs out there too that have concerns that used to be good. Wisconsin lost to Washington State at home. I mean, come on. So I think you should do Iowa sucks. Their offense sucks. Brian Ferentz is the offensive coordinator. He sucks. It's horrible. So be happy with what you got if you got a good football team, and maybe bitch a little bit less.
What about BYU? This was a shocker. Now, and by no means, the guy's been shown to be a fantastic coach at Baylor.
Yes.
But BYU beating Baylor was a shocker.
Yeah, that was a good one too. Well, see, here's the weird thing about that, though. There was a very tight line. Winning at BYU is hard.
Yep.
They've got Jalen Hall, the quarterback, who's very different, but they were missing their two best receivers, especially Puka Nacua, who's a really amazing talent. They're missing their two best receivers. So a lot of people expected, including myself, that Baylor would eventually, outpace them with their speed. And it just didn't happen. And this team just stuck in. Now look at the Notre Dame schedule. This is what's funny. Preseason, they're number 5. They give Ohio State trouble. Preseason, Notre Dame fans were like, find me more than 2 losses. I dare you. Maybe we lose to Clemson and maybe we lose to Ohio State, but at worst, we're 10-2. Now look at their schedule. They got BYU on that schedule. They're a lot better than we thought. Syracuse is on that schedule. They're freaking 2-0. I know they beat UConn, but they destroyed Louisville, and Louisville just beat UCF. USC's on that schedule, and I expected them to start a little sluggish, against a Rice and a Stanford team that really slow the ball down and play, physical in the trenches. And I didn't expect Rice to beat them, but I expected it to be sort of a sloppy game. It wasn't. They destroyed them. Stanford punches people in the mouth as good as anybody. USC didn't flinch. So now you're looking at 6-6. In fact, I just wrote that. It went up on the website. Notre Dame's going to go 6-6, I think. And at the beginning of the season, 10-2 was the worst you could possibly think. So things aren't getting better for Notre Dame. North Carolina's on the schedule too. I mean, that defense, they gave up 26 points to Marshall, is going to give up 30 plus to North Carolina. And are they going to be able to score now that Buckner's out? So things are not looking great for Notre Dame right now, with a fairly easy schedule coming into the season. And this is what I like, because when we get on the field, we get to see stuff. How many times do you see a big win over some overrated SEC team, and then we find out that SEC team sucks and the big win wasn't big at all. This Ohio State win over Notre Dame is going to go down as a win over a top 5 program in the country, and Notre Dame is not even close to that.
There's no doubt about it.
We should probably wrap it up.
Yes.
Because it's been, what, an hour?
Oh, yeah, it has been an hour. Yeah, let's wrap it up. That was a great segment. I tell you, it's this is the best time of the year. Best time of the year.
You know what you should do? Under Coach Schuman, you should put that www.myfootballcamps.com/division1 or
In my
D1. Yeah.
Coach
See, I'm shamelessly plugging my website here.
Yeah, you are shameless.
Yeah, very shameless. You should at least put a website up there or something. So those people, I mean,
Let me see.
are you that famous where you could just put up Coach Schuman and everybody knows who you are?
A lot of people do. They called me Coach Schuman at the pickleball tournament, which shocked me. So a couple people did. So wait a
Did
minute.
you win?
No, I ran it.
You didn't play in it.
No, I'm playing next week in a tournament. But I ran it. It was my tournament.
Do you make money running this?
I have another company called Boardwalk Sports. So
you do every sport, pickleball, lacrosse, like everything.
We're doing now. We're starting to. We're doing flag football for the kids in our area over here. So we have a couple leagues. We have pickleball tournaments. We're doing basketball in the winter. We'll probably do some club track and field. Yeah, I mean, but it's totally different than kind of like my football thing is like my all encompassing, right? I'm doing each facet, like a lot of the areas get covered. These are really more either clubs or events, and that's kind of the breadth of it. But it's fun. I mean, I wanted to do something a little. I wanted to start to do something business wise that was not just. I love football, but I've been doing football forever. Just like you, right? And so I wanted to try some other stuff. Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, Mike. I'll try things. I'll try things.
We talked about that earlier. I'm a content producer, and that's it. And that's all I've ever been. And I'm putting up 80,000 articles. And, I need somebody to step in and monetize it for me because that's not my issue. So, we talked. Well, you throw it around your head. Think a little bit about it. I mean, I've got the one-stop shop for content. It's insane.
It's great. I go to it. I watch it.
And we just put up another one in Fact or Fiction, and is Notre Dame going to finish 6-6? Should Nebraska have fired Scott Frost before October 1st? No, it cost them $7.5 million to fire him. They could have waited until October 1st, and his buyout would have been reduced in half, and they could have saved $7.5 million. Like, he sucks. We get it. You suck. And what they were worried about, nobody really thinks about this. They were scared to death that somehow this horrible Nebraska team was going to go upset Oklahoma, and then they wouldn't know what to do, because how do you fire him after he beats Oklahoma? So they dipped after Georgia Southern early, cost them $7.5 million, and then on there, is Texas A&M's recruiting going to drop because of this loss in this season? And the answer to that is yes. So I got about 5 more articles going up today. It's just the problem is SEO, man. I need an SEO.
I might take a look at that too, because there might be something that you need to do too. There.
I just had somebody look at it. I had my guys at Sports Illustrated look at it. They just came back to me. They said things are looking great from an SEO perspective, filling out all the required films, enough keywords. Every algorithm will understand the content. It just takes time for Google to figure out who the hell you are. And I'm like, come on, man, figure me out. And it will. I'm just not a patient person. And I'm not an entrepreneur like you are. I was a corporate shill for 24 years, man. Now I'm on my own, and I got to get used to that. It's
better on this side. I'm telling you, it's better on this side. I worked in corporate for a few years.
I get it, but you also are a friendly person. You like talking to people, and I'm not. I'm not a friendly person.
Well, they argue though, and I'll tell you this: they do argue that the introvert could do very well as an entrepreneur. They just have to understand what their focus. Like you said it best. You're a content producer, right? So you're really an entrepreneur in that area. You have to fill in the other parts that complement what you're great at, right? Which you're starting to do. That's why we're working together, and you're doing. But you're starting to. You kind of have to fill it. Everyone has to know like what they're kind of good at. Like, I am nowhere near, like, I produce content, but I'm not you. I can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you got to know what you're good at, right? So, you analyze it from when you analyze teams, you're analyzing things from a analyst standpoint, which is awesome. I'm looking at things like if I was a coach in this system, like how would I try to do things, and what's a flaw here, right? So it's if I looked at it from purely how you looked at it, I don't know if I would do as good a job, right? So everybody has different strengths.
Well, and also, I mean, people don't know you as as we call it, a crap stirrer. Like you're a nice guy and a coach. Everybody knows me since day one, and it wasn't my fault. It's just that's who I am as a crap stirrer guy. Like whatever opinion Farrell has, we'd like the opposite. I could go out there. I could go out there and say something. I could say something positive about freaking. I don't know. I don't even want to say the words, but it's just think of the worst human being known to man. I could go out there and say, "Well, yeah, he's great." People would disagree with me. Yeah, I mean, not to say he's great. I could say he's horrible, and people would be like, "No, he wasn't that bad."
Right.
Like because Farrell said he was horrible. No, it wasn't that bad. I'm like, we're talking about the same person here. We all know who we're talking about. It's just. Whatever I say, people want to say the opposite of it, and that's what leads to people reading the stuff. But it's
well, I love. I haven't done it in a while, but when you're doing your lists, your like position lists, and I would do like a little thing about, hey, this Mike Farrell's list on it. The funny thing was people were right on there that towards me, and I would actually say, like, this came from Mike Farrell Sports, right? They would say, you don't know anything about running backs. You don't know. And it wasn't even my list.
Yeah, that's what they want to do. And here's the thing. Those lists are great, and they're great for engagement.
Right.
And I don't really do it during the season. But my guy who put those graphics together for me, he's a UConn grad like you.
Okay.
He got a job at UConn. Which is great. He did an internship for me for 5 months. Now he's got a job at a UConn. I'm not sure if it's the football office or not. He's gone. Now I got to replace him. And this is the other part of it. It's like, when you started, I remember how many people you had and how many moving parts you had. And you had people doing this, that, and the other. And a lot of them weren't doing the right things by you. And some were, and they were loyal, but they weren't. And they would dip out. Can you cover? Yep. Can you cover this camp for me this weekend? Oh, no, I can't. And, dip out for 3 months and then come back when things are going well and say, hey, buddy, I'm back. Like, well, where the hell were you for the last 3 months where it was really hard? There's a lot of dipping in and out. And so every time I think I've got like every hole plugged in the boat, there's another one comes open and I got to focus on that. So now I'm trying to find a graphics guy, and that's going to take my attention away from this, that, and the other. It's just, it's too much for somebody like me who's used to handling one thing to handle. I'll get used to it, but all the juggling that's concerned there. And man, it's just not easy to do. So go to the site, go to myfootballcamps.com/D1 as well. If you're looking for promotion, if you know somebody, everybody knows somebody who has a high school football player who needs promotion, who needs a little bit of a boost. And just DM us. We always answer every DM, everyone.
There's no doubt about it. Check out myfootballcamps.com. You can also go to ncsports.com/D1. This is great talk college football. I can do it all day. I'll let you run, Mike.
All right. See ya.
Good talk to you.